So the year-end procedures, closing procedures for Dynamics GP are actually much easier than what it appears to be when we send you the document. So we have a number of new clients this year that haven't used done Dynamics GP Close previously. And I'm going to just flip this up on my screen right here to give you an introduction. So what we're going to be sending you as soon as we're done with this presentation, we'll be sending this document, which includes all of the closing procedures that need to be performed for Dynamics GP. And you'll notice down here, this thing is 28 pages long. So I want to warn you, for those of you that are new, it can be a little bit overwhelming when you first get it. You're like, oh my God, this is going to be like a huge, difficult process. It really isn't. But the reason this is such a large document is we have procedures for each one of the modules, because what you do for Dynamics GP procedurally is you actually close each module separately first. There's the payroll module, and you'll see there are several pages on payroll, which includes printing W-2s and all that. You'll have inventory, then you'll have sales, and then you'll have purchasing. So we have separate procedures for each one of the modules. They look really complicated, but they're actually not. The reason that it's so long is because the procedures that we publish have to be able to cover various levels of Dynamics GP. We have people that are on, 5 or 6 different versions of GP in our client base, and we have to be able to cover those. We have to cover that breadth, but also we have clients that use all of the modules between them, and so we have to cover the breadth of all of the module closes as well. So there's just a lot more there. Also keep in mind, we take Microsoft's documents and then modify them to be able to publish them for you. When we take Microsoft documents, of course, they're going to put everything in there that's going to protect Microsoft from having any issues with year-end close, and so we have a lot more information in there than necessary. So I just wanted to preface that. So when you get that document, don't panic. I will tell you, a large percentage of our clients they actually just call us, to be honest with you, and they just have us help them through year-end close. So we're very happy to do that. And depending upon your size of organization, it'll take maybe 1 to 2 hours. It does not take very long, and we'd be very happy to just have one of our consultants just go through all the steps with you so that you don't miss anything. So you're very welcome to do that if you'd like as well. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to send you that document with all of the year-end closing procedures. Again, I want to preface this by saying it sounds kind of complicated, but this is a summary that I've created in PowerPoint form of the different procedures as well. And some of my tips and tricks about how we should be working with Dynamics GP and some of the tricks we've learned over the years in working with it. So let's go ahead and get started. When's the best time to close GP? The answer to that for some people is a little bit intimidating, but it's as soon as possible after year end. Most of our clients do their entire close within 5 to 7 business days after the end of the fiscal year. Why do they do that? Because it makes processing so much simpler into the new year, because they want to get it out of the way, because it's January, and what else do you do in January anyway? And so most of our fiscal year clients will be closed between and January 11th. So I want to tell you this now so that you're prepared that it is a very fast close procedure, but the good news is it was a very fast close procedure really quickly. So one of the biggest questions that we get every year is, what do I do with 2016 transactions? Can I enter them before I close 2015? And that's kind of a loaded question. The official answer from Microsoft is, enter transactions into batches for 2016. Do not post any batches until you are fully closed on 2015. That is the official information from Microsoft. That being said, for those of us that have been using Dynamics GP for many years or consulting on it for many years, we kind of know where the gaps are. And so we do have, I'll tell you, a number of clients that actually don't close until well into 2016. But I want to tell you that if you possibly can, you should follow Microsoft's procedures. Why? It's very good for you personally because you get it over with very quick, but also it's just makes everything very clean for you. So what we recommend doing is you do not stop processing at all. January 2nd, when your staff come in, they just start entering transactions. The difference is they save the transactions into batches, and what you'll do then is when you have 2015 closed, you'll just go in and post all the batches, and you'll be rocking and rolling for 2016. Now, there is one question I get frequently, which is for AP. So let's say you have an invoice that comes in on December 26th. And, you know, you're in the middle of close, so everybody's on vacation because it's the holidays, et cetera. You come in on January 2nd, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, crap, I didn't enter that invoice, and I need to pay that vendor. So you'll go in and you want to enter that transaction. But in order to enter that vendor, if you enter that vendor invoice, in order to pay them, you actually have to post it. So it kind of messes people up that way. So what we recommend doing in that situation is for all your vendor invoices, make sure everything is entered by 12/31 so that when everything is in there, so that any vendor invoices that are due and have to be paid, any checks that have to be paid, won't have to be paid that first week in January. That's the way to avoid it. The other thing that I'll note for those of you who use Payroll Module, you can run payroll after close. I think a lot of people are going to have a payroll due on January 1 this year if you're on biweekly payrolls, and which means many of us are going to have a payroll we're going to handily run on December 31st. But if you're on the opposite of that and you have to run a payroll the first Friday in January and you haven't closed yet, go ahead and run it. The only thing you do at the end, though, is just don't post it. Just save it till the end and then post it after you've closed. Next question, can I enter, let's see, let me keep going here. What happens if I don't close before posting into the new year? So let's say that I can't do it. For whatever process-wise, I'm brand new on GP, I can't get everything done, whatever. I have things going on. I cannot get, for various reasons, I cannot wait. I have to start posting in the new year. It's actually not that terrible. There are only a handful of things that change. What's really going to happen is if you go ahead and run, post transactions into 2016 before you perform the close, you will have a number of reports that don't have the correct numbers on them. That being said, only a small number of companies actually happen to use those reports. The one that we're talking about is Vendor Yearly Summary Inquiry, Customer Summary Inquiry, and Customer Yearly Summary. So for those of you that use or that work in the area where you have customers, so you know how you can go in and do an inquiry and see what year-to-date sales you've had with a customer, or if you're in a vendor card and you want to go look up what an inquiry on your year-to-date vendors, how much you've spent with a vendor this year. Those numbers will not be correct because the closing procedure resets those tables. So if you go ahead and start entering transactions into 2016 before closing the year, those transactions are going to show up in 2015. Also, a couple of reports won't be quite accurate. Inventory turnover report. It's not a terrible thing. So if for some reason you can't do it, not going to be the end of the world if you can't, if you need to start posting transactions. What if I don't have solid financial statements fast enough? So here's my trick that we use and we recommend for our clients. Close each module as you work. So each of the modules have to be closed in this order. First inventory, then receivables, then payables, then fixed assets, then project accounting, then general ledger. So go ahead and do it in that order. But usually inventory is your first thing you've got to close anyway, because you can't, you got to get that done right away. So when you have inventory solid, go ahead and close that module. Then when you have sales order processing and receivables solid, go ahead and close that module. Then when you have payables solid, go ahead and close payables. And those other modules, fixed assets, project accounting, and GL, then you can get moving. Let's say that you get inventory and receivables closed. Now you can actually post all the customer invoices, right? Because inventory and receivables are closed, so you can actually start posting into those modules. And when payables is closed, you can start posting payables. What if I have to do an audit? I get this question every single year, like multiple times. Close it anyway. I can't emphasize that enough. Dynamics GP handles post-closing adjustments incredibly well. Never, I'm kidding, not kidding, in 16 years of doing this, I have never had a problem with post-closing adjustments. When you enter, let's say you close GL, and you have an audit adjustment, and you need to go ahead and enter that adjustment. All that happens, let's say you have an expense you need to accrue as a result of the audit. All that's going to happen is you're going to enter the GL adjustment. It's going to debit expense, and it's going to credit accrued liability. All the system's going to do is go, oh, they've already closed this year, so I'm going to debit expense, credit accrued liability, and then I'm going to do a second entry immediately following, which debits retained earnings and credits expense. So it goes ahead and runs the close and does everything perfectly. So don't wait till you have an audit complete before you close the GL. Now there is one trick to this. If you are on GP 2013, let's see. Oh, I wrote that wrong. You're being GP 2013 and later, you actually have an option now that is available to you that you can reopen a prior close year. So you actually could do that if you needed to. I'll tell you, you probably won't need to do that because the post-closing adjustments work so well in GP. I can't see a scenario where that's actually going to be necessary for any of our clients. What happens if I close and found out that I need to make a change afterwards? Oh, there you go. I just went ahead and followed up on it. If you're pre-GP 2013 R2, you'll make a reversing GL adjustment, or you'll have to perform the transaction in a subsidiary ledger anyway and understand the reports may not be correct. So sometimes you actually will need to make a transaction that hits a subsidiary ledger, such as Payables or something like that, after you've already closed. Honest truth is, works just fine. Not even usually. I've never seen a time where it hasn't rolled through just perfectly. And so, you can go ahead and do it. We just try to caution you from doing it because the reports then it might not be correct. If you're on GP 2013 R2 or higher, you actually could reverse your year-end close, recommend perform the transaction in reversal, and then go ahead and do the close again. My recommendation is that's just a lot of work for nothing. Go ahead and do the reversal. Go ahead and enter the transaction and post it because it's probably going to be just fine. So let's talk about some of the things we'll do to prepare for close in terms of best practices. There are 4 things I recommend doing before you get ready for close. First of all, one thing you need to do right away is order your 1099s and W-2s. Then you'll, right after year end, you'll complete your balance sheet close. Then you'll complete your month-end routines, and then you'll run check links. So these are things that we recommend doing as best practices prior to performing close. First, your 1099s and W-2s. I think Amy sent an email to our clients a week or 2 ago with the ordering instructions for 1099s and W-2s. If for some reason you did not get that or you need to have it resent, please email amy.gangle@savannahs.com and she'll go ahead and send that to you. The preferred provider for Microsoft Dynamics is the Lux Corporation. That's who Microsoft recommends, and that's who we recommend as well. Why do we recommend it? Because they do all the proper formatting, so when you print the forms, you don't usually have to do much fiddling around to make everything hit the right boxes. Oh, and by the way, very strange, but it actually is only WW, not WWW. So, but if you go ahead and email Amy, if you didn't get that email, you can go ahead and she'll give you the link and you can go ahead and order. Next thing to prepare for close. We recommend doing a balance sheet close every month end. If you do a balance sheet close every month end, we find that year end becomes pretty much a non-event, honestly. It goes very quickly. That's why people are able to go ahead. If they do a soft close every single month end, they're able to do a hard close by January 5th to January 11th fairly easily because they've already done all the work as the year progresses. The clients that have problems trying to get things done that quickly have one of 2 things going on. Either they haven't done soft closes every month end, so they're trying to clean up a whole bunch of stuff, that's happened prior in the year, or they may do an extraordinary number of GL adjustments. Either one of those are actually poor practices with Dynamics GP. Number 1, if you're the person who hasn't closed November yet, you should be doing that right now. Like, it's time to get November closed solid and get your balance sheet as clean as you possibly can for November right now, so that when you get to the end of December, the year end becomes very quick and a lot simpler to do. So make sure your November is as clean as it can possibly be. The second thing, if you're a company that does a lot of GL adjustments in GP at month end or year end, you're not using GP properly. Okay, I would just be honest. I'm just being blunt here, but it's true. Dynamics GP, if you use the subsidiary ledgers properly, if you use the system properly, requires very, very few general ledger adjustments. So if you are doing general ledger adjustments, a lot of them, please contact me and I will talk you through what you can do to get rid of those, because it not only lends to inaccuracies, but it also means that you're not fully using the capabilities of the system, which means you're doing a lot more work than you need to do. So every month end, I'm just a real quick thing that for those of you who haven't kind of been through our implementation procedure, because maybe you just migrated to us, etc., is the methodology is this. We all know assets equals liabilities plus prior year retained earnings plus current year income. We all know that. So what a balance sheet close does is what you do is you go through every single asset liability account and you nail it down through third party or outside sources. You verify every single asset account and every single liability account every month end. If those are perfect every month end and you know what your prior year retained earnings is, which we all know, you know income has to be right. So that's how you know your financials are correct. I actually have a document that I can go ahead and will send to you, which is month-end closing procedures. So if you haven't seen this document before because you haven't been through an implementation with us yet or whatever, this will give you some fairly simple instructions of what you need to do each month end to do your soft balance sheet close, and you definitely need to do this for year end. At the end of it, you'll see we give some examples of some of the things you would do to verify your balances. For example, cash. We all know what is the thing that verifies your cash account. It's your bank rec. What is it for accounts receivable? It's your historical age trail balance. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to email me, support@savannahs.com, or any of the Savannahs consultants to help you with that. So we'll send that to you for those of you who haven't used that yet. Next thing, for running, the next thing we'll want to do in preparing for close is run your month-end routines. So there are 4 routines that we recommend doing every month-end and definitely at year-end. Age your accounts receivable, run paid transaction removal routine in sales module, remove completed POs, purchasing module. And by the way, if those second 2, if anybody on this call uses sales module or purchase orders and they don't run those, please let us know, because you're slowing down your system, you're making things more complicated for yourself, and we'll explain to you what you need to run those routines. And then the last thing is run reconciles on each module. That is just a really good idea to do that. Actually, you know what we can also do is send you a document that gives instructions on how to run reconciles so that you have that. Next thing you'll do is run check links. Check links is something that is a technical thing within the system, but it's kind of magical for those of us who are accounting people and not technical people. Basically, what check links does is it goes through all of your tables in Dynamics GP and makes sure they all link together properly, that there's no funky stuff out there is the best way to describe it. So, for example, for those of you who might have had a batch that got kind of funky and hung up on you at one point, you'll see that we'll frequently run check links on that. Why? Because maybe that batch, the transactions are all there, but for some reason the batch got corrupted, so you can't get to the transactions for some reason. Check links goes through and goes, oh, there's all the transactions in the batch. Oh, I'm missing a batch for that. I'm going to create a batch for that. And it goes ahead and sets up the batch magically and fixes it all for you. I do recommend at your end you do run check links in all of your modules. In order to do that, you need to be a power user. You have to have system level security. Everyone has to be out of the system. And you have to, I cannot emphasize this enough, run a full backup before running check links. So if you are somebody who's on our hosted platform, which most of you are, you'll need to just email in and we'll run a backup for you. It's no big deal. It's included in your service. You're never charged for it, but we'll run a backup and you can go ahead and run check links. Now, that being said, check links has to be when no one's in the system. It's kind of a hassle because everyone has to be out, so you can't do it during the day. And it takes hours to run for some of our clients, hours and hours. Some people can get it done in a couple to 4 hours. Some may take all night long to get this run. So a lot of times, if they just don't have time, they're trying to get year-end closed, they're too busy, whatever, if you email support@savannahs.com, we'll go ahead and run check links for you, and we'll stay late and do it one night, or we'll do it over the weekend or whatever, so that you don't have to deal with it. Okay, and then the last thing you'll do to prepare for close is close your fiscal periods. So each time, but before you close each module, you'll want to go close your fiscal periods to keep your staff from accidentally posting into the wrong year. And that is done in administration company fiscal periods. And I'm pretty sure everybody on this call has done that before. Now let's talk through the year-end closing procedures themselves. Again, I sent a document. I will be sending a document when we're done. Year-end closing procedures document. And you'll see we have it for each of the modules. So here's the inventory one. It gives you a summary of all of the steps that you need to perform to go ahead and complete year-end close for inventory module. It also tells you in detail where you need to go to perform each of the things that you need to do. So it has a lot of detail in it, but it can be very helpful. We are here to help you. Any questions, any problems, any concerns, you're welcome to call us and we'll help you with it. I will say a number of our clients just have them, even if they've been on GP for many years, we just help them do it every year. And because you know what? We do this all the time. You guys do it once a year, and I'm telling you, it's really hard to remember from year to year what you're supposed to do. So it just makes them feel more comfortable, and we're very happy to do that for you. So for year-end close for GP, you will close the modules in the following order. First is payroll, although I have optional next to that because technically we do payroll first, but it happens first typically because payroll is the highest priority. But then after that, in this order, you need to do the close. Inventory, then receivables, then payables, then fixed assets, then analytical accounting, then project accounting, and then general ledger. So that's the order it's going to have to be performed. And again, these instructions we're going to send to you, and we do have instructions for you on how to do all those things. So let's see. Keep going here. Best practices when you're doing your year-end close. If you notice on the document that I just popped up on the screen and that I'm going to send you, it says on every single module you have to run multiple backups. All right, that is actually true. Those are Microsoft's recommended procedures. However, in reality, most of our clients are in the SMB market. There's really no reason to go through all that because it'll take you forever to get through close if you try to do that. Really, if you think about it, the only reason you run a backup is that you can revert if something goes wrong. So let's say you close payroll, and then you close inventory, then you close receivables. So let's say even a worst case, inventory, receivables, payables, project accounting, those are all done. And something goes wrong, like something completely crashes on your PC. It's so extraordinarily rare when we have a problem, but let's say something terrible happened at that moment. What's the worst case scenario? You made a backup before you started. It only took you 20 minutes to get to this place, maybe a half an hour. So yeah, you go revert to your backup and you rerun the last half hour of work. So you only do it when you don't have time to go back. The only other trick is if you're on your own servers, make sure that as soon as you're sure that the closing is successful, delete all the backups you have on your own servers so you don't waste all that space in your system. And then the second best practice on that document, it tells you to print reports at the end of each one of the modules, completions. I say no, don't do it. The one that's for AR is like ridiculously long, hundreds, thousands of pages for some of our clients. The fact is, you can go and get that information anytime you want anyway with backups, so there's no reason to do it because the chances you're ever going to look at those reports are so incredibly slim that it's just not worth printing at all. You're just going to waste a lot of space in your file cabinets. The only exception to that is always print the final report when you do GL close, and that is noted in our documents. Let's go through each one of the modules now and talk through them. First of all, payroll. One of the important things you're going to want to do is be aware that we have to prepare for payroll year-end. You will have to update. There will be a payroll year-end update. In fact, I think it was published by Microsoft last week. That will need to be performed for you. So we will be sending an email out to all of our clients that have the payroll module in the next week to start to schedule that. If you like, you're welcome to just reach out to us to email support@savannahs.com to schedule that so that we can get that on the schedule. What we're going to need to know is what is your date of your last payroll in 2015? What's your first payroll in 2016? Make sure we get it scheduled. One important thing for those of you who are on not hosted customer, not customers on Azure, but those of you who have your own servers still, you have to install the year-end updates on every single computer before running year-end updates. So just remember that for those of you that still have your own servers. And then the last trick we have for payroll is print all your quarterly reports, like your quarterlies, before closing payroll. Why? Because this will confuse people. Every year we get service tickets on this one. You go, you're like swamped. It's like year-end, you're racing to get everything done. You're like, I got to get payroll closed because I got a payroll going out, blah, blah, blah. You close payroll. Then it gets to be about January, 28th, 26th, and you're like, oh, I've got to print quarterly reports out for 2015. You go to print it, it's blank. Like, oh, crap, where did that go? There is a trick to that. all you have to do if this happens to you, if you forget to run the report, change your system date to 12/31/2015, and you actually will be able to get the report. Simple answers, just print it before you close payroll, and you won't have a panic attack. Okay, next one, inventory. Couple things you'll want to do for inventory. You definitely want to reconcile in item quantities before you close. And by the way, for inventory, reconciling inventory item quantities is a must. For those of you that have substantial inventory, you should do it more than once a month. Those of you who have small amounts of inventory, maybe up to 5,000 to 10,000 parts, you can get by doing it once a month. Those of you who have more than 10,000 parts and a lot of activity, you're going to want to do it at least a couple times a month, inventory quantities. Secondly, and if you have any questions about that, you can let us know and we'll help you with that. Secondly, you'll want to do a physical count, and for those of you who haven't used stock count entry, it does work really well for that, so you'll want to do that physical count. You'll want to print the historical stock status report if you use that report. I will say at this point, the historical inventory trial balance is used by probably 90 to 95% of our clients now because it's a lot more accurate report. But if you still use a historical stock status report, print that out. There's a couple decisions that you're going to want to make as you go through. There is an option when you go through inventory close to remove discontinued items. That option is kind of handy. Let's say you're somebody who has a high inventory quantities, high volume of transactions. Let's say that you have in the tens of thousands of parts. It can be difficult to, scroll through and find things. If you discontinue the parts as you go, then you can go ahead and run this utility as you do year-end close, and they'll put those all, there's still inquiry available, etc., but it takes them all of those inquiry lists and all that for you. Again, any questions, let us know. And the last thing that's confusing, or actually I would say, even for me, as many times as I've done this, it just gives me this little feeling in the pit of my stomach, is when you do inventory close, you click the button and it goes and runs, and then it just stops. And you're like, what just happened? There's no report that prints at the end of inventory close. So when it stops, it's done. That's it. It's just done. No report. And so don't panic if it looks like nothing happened because something did really happen. It just didn't print a report. Receivables. For receivables, the only trick to receivables, it's actually a very simple close on receivables. Just don't print the closing report. It's massive. It can be in the thousands of pages for some of our clients. And if you're using the receivables module but not the payables module, you do need to close the tax year, and the instructions are in there to do that. I can't think of anybody in our client base that would use receivables, not payables. It works a lot the other way around, but not using receivables, but not payables. Next thing, payables module. Tricks is, if you can at all avoid it, don't post any AP transactions until after you've closed AP. For those of you that are fiscal year companies, as in a not 12/31 company, you should do an AP close at 12/31. So you'll actually do payables close twice during the year. You'll do you'll do your payables close for year-end, say, or June 30 year-end. You'll do a payables close at June 30th, and then you'll do a second calendar year close at 12/31. Next thing is you want to make sure that you close the tax year. Again, that's in the instructions. It'll tell you how to do that. And then part of the AP close procedures produces the 1099s. And the 1099s work pretty well in GP. Keep in mind they can be edited. They can be rerun multiple times. You don't need to panic if it didn't work well. You can actually manually edit them as necessary. So just so you know, you've got that available to you. Fixed assets. This one I can't highlight enough because it's a really big deal. If you have fixed assets, you have to perform asset close. It is absolutely mandatory, and you cannot do any fixed asset depreciation in January for 2016 before you close 2015. Can't emphasize it enough. Had it happen once, and it took a fixed-paying Microsoft to roll it back. It's expensive and very scary, and one thing you don't want to have is have to re-implement fixed assets module from scratch because you don't want to pay Microsoft to fix it. So for those of you who have fixed assets, make sure fixed asset close before you do anything in January. Also, make sure payables is closed before closing fixed assets. Why? Because AP does impact assets. And then the other thing is print all your reports for fixed assets prior to closing as well. Project accounting. We have a lot of project accounting clients. Those of you who have project accounting, there are no specified year-end procedures for project accounting. So when you go through my document we're sending out, you aren't going to find any closing procedures. But we do have a couple best practices we recommend. First of all, run project accounting reconciles, which is in project utilities, PA Reconcile, and there's also in PA Reconcile, I think it's called PA Reconcile Periodic or something. First of all, definitely run it for year-end. Actually, because of the way project accounting works on the tables and the complexity underneath it, you should really be running this as a best practice every single month end. So make sure, I recommend running full project accounting reconciles before you run revenue recognition every month end. Just be aware of that. If you have any questions, please let us know on that. Another best practice, run check links of project accounting at year end. The reason I say that is, again, project accounting is one of the most complex modules in Dynamics GP in terms of table linkages and all the things underneath it. And you know how it rolls all the way up. You know, when you use project accounting, it's pervasive in the system. It rolls all the way up through sales module, purchasing module, payables, receivables, GL. It's payroll. It's like it hits everything. So the linkages between the tables, it's a lot easier for things to go wrong, or you have corruption in the tables. So you really should run check links at year end. And when you run check links on project, run it multiple times so that you get to a point where there are 0 errors in check links when you're done with it, because that'll just make so much cleaner for you. You'll have less issues with revenue recognition. General ledger. Very important. Wherever I have stuff in blue, it's important. Please pay attention to it, because there are things we get service tickets for every single year. This one we get every year without fail. When you there's an account list you can print out, and there's instructions on how to do that if you don't know how. What you want to do is make sure that every balance sheet type account is designated balance sheet, and every P&L type account is designated as a P&L account. So what I'm talking about here is, when you set up a brand new account, you have to select, there's a little option on when you set up a new account to select whether it's balance sheet or income statement. That's a really big deal, okay? So I'll tell you what happens if you don't do that. Okay, so let's say that you have a balance sheet account that's designated as an income statement. It's like for some reason somebody accidentally set it up and selected income statement. What happens when I do year-end close, then when we run year-end close, is the system goes, oh, that's an income statement account. That's how it knows it's an income statement account. So it'll go through and it'll take the balance in that account and it'll close it to retained earnings. So guess what? That account is now in retained earnings. It's not in your balance sheet anymore. Your financials are just wrong. The good news is, if that happens to you, let us know. There's a procedure we can run to undo it, okay? But just save yourself the trouble. Just take the 5 minutes, print out the list, verify every balance sheet account is a balance sheet account, every P&L account is a P&L account. Next thing, this one is just a small thing and it's in the instructions. Verify your GL setup settings before you close. In other words, make sure that you allow posting to history. And you just follow the instructions, you'll be good. You also will need to set up your new fiscal year before close. So your 2016 fiscal year will have to be set up before you close 2015. Now, that being said, just so you know, people get really panicky about setting up new fiscal years like it's a really big deal. It's really not, okay? Like, I have clients who set up fiscal years 3 or 4 years out. In fact, our own system, because of the way we do deferred revenue recognition, we are open all the way through 2018. It does no harm at all, because I have the fiscal years closed, fiscal periods closed, so nobody can accidentally post to it, but it gives me a lot more flexibility. What is the impact of GL close? The income statement accounts closed to retained earnings and balance sheet rolls forward. Year-to-date balances in the GL are updated, and management reporter and FRX reports roll forward to the new year. So never fails, somebody panics. They go pull up a balance sheet account. Actually, we had someone who did this actually recently. They pull up a balance sheet account. They're like, this is wrong. This is just totally wrong. This isn't the right balance in it. And then I realized, hey, it's a tiny little company. It was not even material to their financials or anything like that, but they to the rest of their organization. But they had forgotten to close the year on that company last year, so the balance sheet balance had never rolled forward. So the balance sheet was actually wrong. So make sure that's what close does, and that's part of the reason that I tell you to, even though you haven't done your audit yet, make sure you do your balance sheet close, because everything is so much better. Make sure that you close the GL, even if you have additional adjustments that may be coming through. After you're done completing the close, you do need to run SQL database maintenance every year end. It's pretty simple and straightforward for us to do. Email support@savannahs.com. When you're done, we'll take care of it for you. And then the last thing, you'll need a permanent backup to store in a secure location. Those of you who are on Azure, don't need to worry about that because that's taken care of on Azure. Those of you who have your own servers, it's an important thing to do. Have a number. I'm actually moving along pretty good here. It's 10:41 Central Time. I've got about 5 more minutes of just FAQs, frequently asked questions. These are things that people ask us most year ends so that you have answers to some of your questions. When I'm done with this, then I'm going to stop talking and look at chat and see if there are any things. You can go ahead and ask any questions you want of me, and I'll go ahead and respond to those questions, and that will be it. So why don't some of my vendor payments show up in the vendor's 1099? So you close AP, you run your 1099s, and you go look at a vendor, and the vendor says that you paid them $10,000 this year, but you know you paid them $15,000 this year, and you're like, this isn't right. My 1099s aren't right. Here's what happened a vast majority of the time. That company, let's say that was a new vendor. It was set up in 2015. The AP person set up the vendor on February 1st, and they set up the whole thing, and then they forgot to mark the box that says it's a 1099 vendor. They just forgot. Not a big deal, but they forgot. Then they write a check for $5,000 in February, and then it goes along, and they go to write another $5,000 check, and they're like, crap, I didn't mark the box. So they mark the box. Only those vendor payments that were made after the box was marked are going to show up on the 1099. So that's why it didn't show up. So if that happened to you this year, if you had vendors that maybe somebody had an accident and didn't go ahead and mark that box on time, or they had something like that happen, you'll have to just manually adjust the 1099. Actually, there is a utility if you're on GP 2013 and later to make 1099 adjustments easier than they used to be. So if you're on 2013 and later, 1099 adjustments are pretty straightforward. And I believe in the year-end instructions we're sending, it tells you how to do the adjustments, so you can look that up, and we can also help you with that. What if I want to issue a check on January 2nd, but I haven't closed AP for 2015 yet? Just print it, but just don't post it. A lot of people that are payables people, they're so quick, like they do payables so much and they get so fast at it, it's just like a habit for them to jump straight to close. And because the procedure runs you through it so quickly, you'll hit post. Just don't post it until after you've closed. Can I make general ledger adjustments after closing? I've already emphasized that a number of times in this call. Yes, you can. I just want to remind you again, every year I have people again, oh, I might have more adjustments, so I don't want to close. No. There is absolutely no harm closing and doing a general ledger adjustment afterwards. It happens every year with everybody. Yes, you can post to a close year as long as the fiscal period is open. So, that you have to remember, you close, you go through the whole year and close, then you want to make an adjustment. You just have to go open the fiscal period, post the adjustment, and retained earnings will automatically be rolled forward, and you're in great shape. When I try to close the GL, I get an error message that says a single-use batch or quick journal has not been posted. Help! And we really do get that kind of email. Actually, we get more panicked emails than that at times, but actually, it's a scary one because when you're on close once a year and you don't want to screw it up, so you get an error and you're like, and people panic because it's too stressful. The trick is what the system does to make sure, as a last check before performing GL close, they just want to make sure you didn't forget anything. So the system goes through everything in the system, inventory, receivables, payables, project, everywhere in the entire system, and looks for any batch with the 2015 date on it. So and if it finds one, it gives you this message to say, excuse me, you may have forgotten to post a batch. So I just want to remind you of this. So please go back and take care of that. Make sure you didn't miss something. There's really no harm done. It's actually just a warning. But what you do want to do if you get that warning is go back, look at all of your batches, make sure you have posted all 2015 transactions. If you haven't, if that batch is out there and it's got a 2015 date, but you don't want to post it into 2015, just change the date to 2016 date of when you really are going to do it, and you'll be fine. If you have a quick journal entry, change the date to a 2016 date because you're not going to post it in 2015 anyway, and that'll make that message go away. Next one, I'm performing GL close and it seems to be stopped at 50%. What should I do? That's a panic one too. It's like, oh my God, what's going wrong? I don't know what it is. It's something about Dynamics GP close. It just stops some sites at 50%. And then eventually it just picks right back up. I think it's just the timer on it or something. It just stops, but it's actually still running. It just doesn't look like it is. So just be patient, wait. If nothing happens after a while, I don't know, after 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just call us and we will restore from backup for you. I have to say, this is the instructions we have from Savannah's, from Microsoft. So I'm just repeating those. Actually, we've never had to restore from backup for this. It really does just hang at 50%. Does everyone have to be out of GP when I do the close? Yes. We recommend you get everybody out of the system. Again, you have to make a full backup anyway, so everyone has to be out for backups anyway. Do it when no one else is in. It'll make it a lot less stressful scenario for you. But I forgot to close fixed assets. That was the emphasis that I did. You can't forget. Okay, you can't forget. This can't happen. You have to close it every year. It's actually a really significant issue, so just don't. Okay. Can I make GL adjustments after close? Okay, I'm reminding you again because I get this one so often. Yes, you can close to it as long as you've opened the fiscal period. Okay. Now, there is another alternative for those of you who really feel like you need it, although I have to tell you I really haven't found anyone that truly needed it. There is a second closing period feature that allows you to post audit adjustments separately from others, and if you want to find out about that, just let us know. Close the year in the GL. Is there a way to undo it? In 13 R2 and later, there is a functionality to reverse his historical year. There are rare, but certainly times where this can be very helpful. I recommend not doing it yourself. If you really want to do this, please talk to us first. We'll walk through your issue, whatever it is that you think is causing this issue. We'll walk through it with you and make sure that you really need to do it, that there isn't another alternative, and if you do it, what the consequences of it are going to be. And then we'll advise you, should I really do it or not? Yeah, I've gotten through everything. So I think at this point I'm checking my time here, it looks like I'm about 48 minutes into this, so I've got 10 minutes open still. So what I'd like to do is go ahead. I have not been watching chat because I've been busy talking. What I'd like to do is check chat and see what kinds of questions you have. I think what I'll do is ask Jenna to let me know. Jenna, do we have any open questions at this time?
We had a couple questions throughout the call today, but Todd and Mary have answered the majority of them. We did have a question just now that was, is there a report I can run to see what vendors are marked for 1099s and what type? And Mary responded and said there's a 1099 vendor smart list that provides this. If the type isn't part of the default smart list, it can be added.
Okay, yeah, so what she's saying is you can go, that's correct. You can go to Smart List and under the vendors area, and there'll be one that's called 1099. And what she means by isn't part of default Smart List, what she's saying is you pull up the Smart List, you know how you can hit add and you can add columns. What she's saying is you can add the column onto there. Yep, and it looks like Tiffany's asking, can we send the webinar and slides? Yes, we're going to send, what I'm going to send when we're done here is we're going to send the slides, the instructions for year-end close, the instructions for month-end close, the balance sheet close, because I just want everybody to know what they should be doing every month-end and especially at year-end. And I think I had one additional thing that I added to that, which is instructions for performing reconciles. I don't want to send instructions for performing check links. And the reason I'm not going to do that is because it is somewhat technical. If you don't know how to do it, you probably shouldn't be doing it yourself in the first place, and you should probably be contacting us to do it for you, okay? So, or we may give you instructions, and walk you through it to make sure that there aren't any mistakes that are made with it. Trying to think of anything else. Todd made a note on here saying reconcile inventory is going to take a while. Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't mention that when we were going through. Reconciling inventory takes a long time to do. It can, depending upon your volume of transactions and the amount of what you've got in there, it can take hours to run. So it can take 10 minutes for smaller companies with, less than, a few thousand items, but it can also take hours for some people. And the other trick is you have to be out of GP. You got to do a backup and have every Buddy B out of GB. Yeah, Todd just said, and I am too. Sometimes they take more than 24 hours. Yeah, you know, we've had clients that have 60,000 to 100,000 parts, and they have high activity. That's going to be what happens. It's going to take a long time. So if you want help running the reconciles, sometimes people just pay us to do it because they don't want to do it on the weekends or nights or whatever. Very important you do it, though, because your allocated quantities and inventory will get off if you do not run those reconciles. But very good point. Yep. And you will get an error if you try to run reconcile and anybody else is in the system. It won't allow you. I still have probably 5 minutes here yet. If anybody has any questions about all the things I just went through. Is there anything else anybody has? Perfect. That sounds great. Well, I hope this was helpful for everyone. What I literally did is sat down Monday night and just wrote out everything I could think of that people ask us. Because we just want to give you the information to save you the time or the stress, because you're in a stressful, to save you the stress of having issues or questions or things you're not expecting. So. Perfect. Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a good rest of your day.